At the heart of being a leader, an owner, a person who endures, or the heart of endurance leadership, are these three core outcomes that I'm obsessed with. So there's unshakable focus, unstoppable momentum, and actualized potential. And today on the podcast, we're going to start to invite you to reflect on where you might currently be and fill in the gaps towards where you'd actually like to be with those three outcomes. So I'm Suzanne Rath, and you're listening to Endurance for your daily dose of endurance leadership and life lessons. Now, the other day, I shared an article on my LinkedIn that I had published in an executive magazine, and I will share it in the show notes. But what really surprised me was one of the comments where somebody made a statement saying, recovery is really overrated. What people really need is more focus. And that is true. We are completely starved for focus. We need to starve our distractions, feed our focus. And there are so many things in the modern world that are taking our focus away. But focus alone isn't going to get us to where we need to be. We need to have the capacity to take the steps to get there, which is our momentum. And we need to actually have the courage to actualize our true potential, the courage to support all of these other things that I talk about in Endures. And so we sometimes try to think that we live in this binary yes or no, black or white society, and that's not true. Without one of these outcomes, we're not going to keep hitting the things that we really want to achieve over and over and over again. And that's why they tie so nicely in together. So if you are looking at the video, which I'd strongly encourage you to do for this one, on YouTube or on Substack, you will see that I'm showing the calibration scale. And so there's a question for unshakable focus, and that is, how can I make every action count towards what truly matters? The question for unstoppable momentum is, how can I turn effort into extraordinary results? So once you know what actually matters, how do you make sure the effort you put into it also yields what you want, right? The summits that you want. And with actualized potential, the question is, how can I unlock what I'm truly capable of? Because so many of us live in fear or in limiting beliefs, or we're waiting for gratification, or we're waiting for things to slow down, or, we read things like The Regrets of the Dying, where so many people say they wish they lived a life that was true to themselves. So what I've done on the calibration scale here is I actually deliberately have left out the amber and the light green. So the scales run from a red to a dark green. And the red is where a small percentage of people find themselves across all three outcomes, right? So in terms of in terms of unshakable focus, they find themselves in the spinning compass, right? Like a compass that isn't properly calibrated. If all of 4 points aren't working, they're just spinning around all over the place. How can you focus when you don't even know the direction that you're going in, where you don't have clarity in your vision, where you don't know what your goals are? It's really difficult to focus on anything. If you're just completely all over the place, constantly frazzled, running from one thing to the other, it's impossible to focus. And the absolute dark green, or the 9 or 10 out of 10 on unshakable focus, is where you have absolute clarity. And absolute clarity is where you know where you're going. You have conviction. It aligns with your values. You can picture it. It has meaning to you. And that doesn't mean it doesn't scare you sometimes, but a reminder that it is actually meaningful. And so what you might think about in the amber and in the light green is what it takes to get from that point of a spinning compass to getting to that point of absolute clarity. Because the thing is, nobody just jumps from that red to that dark green. There's always a number of steps that they have to go through. And so many people who maybe hit the amber, They might be, they might have a little bit of attention, but they still feel like they're rushing quite a lot. When they hit the light green, they may feel like things are fine, like things are kind of moving along okay. But absolute clarity is really where it's at. And then when we look at unstoppable momentum, the people in the red are chronically overloaded. So those days where you just can't get on top of things, but that is almost like their lives. And we all go through chapters like this where we feel like we're overloaded, but this is chronic. This is not being able to dig your way out. This is never feeling like you can get on top of things. This is subscribing to the idea that working harder and harder is going to fix things. This is maybe living off a constant to-do list rather than things that are going to move the needle. And it's exhausting. And it leads to things like burnout, and it leads to poor staff engagement and poor retention and so on, because we're expecting people to constantly do more with less support. And then the absolute opposite of that is having constant capacity. So feeling like your energy is modulated, right? You're like ticking everything off your list, but you're not actually exhausted. And you know what? Maybe you're not taking everything off your list. You're probably not. I mean, I don't take everything off my list every day at all. But, you feel like you're prioritizing the things that are most important, and you have capacity for the things that are most important, whether in your leadership or your life. You feel like you're moving in the right direction. And so the question might be, what would you call the amber and the light green there? So what would you call like a 4 or a 5 or 6 or a 7 out of 10 in your effort? So, maybe you're wearing a little gold medal saying, oh, I can do everything. I can fix all the things, like your calendar is packed with meetings. You are putting on a brave face, but you're internally exhausted and you don't actually know if the things you're doing are moving your business or your legacy forwards. Or, maybe things kind of mostly move along okay, but you just feel like there's more impact that you could be making. There's more legacy that you could be making without running yourself into the ground to do so. You feel like the business could be moving quicker. Your team could be moving quicker in the right direction, not just in every single direction. And then when it comes to actualized potential and how you can unlock what you're truly capable of, the small percentage of people in the red are in this thing of self-erosion. And there's so many things there. There is the identity of not entering into the leadership identity, not entering into the CEO identity, giving of yourself way too much. There's poor boundaries. There is giving yourself away maybe to your kids or your partner where you don't even know yourself anymore. There are so many pieces there that keep people in the red. But the majority of people are probably in the amber or the light green. And then that small percentage of people are in the dark green, or a 9 out of 10, or a 9 or 10 of boundless elevation. And for me, this is thinking about my most expansive future. It's like looking back and thinking, oh, I've anchored my year with something big, and thinking, a 16-year-old me or even 30-year-old me would never have thought I'd be here. So it combines that clarity of vision and the courage to choose it and the support systems to keep you going. But, I just invite you to think what might sit between self-erosion and boundless elevation, because nobody jumps straight from the red to the green. There's always a number of gates that we need to cross to get there, and often there needs to be guidance. So often the people, even in the amber, might be externally successful and people are telling them they're doing well and everything's fine, but something just feels off. They're getting frustrated. They aren't energized. They don't feel like they're doing the work that truly energizes them or living the life that is, their genius zone, right? And then moving into the light green, and you can think what you might call that, they maybe are expanding their possibilities, like they're starting to think what's possible, but they're certainly not at that constant expansion of where, they can hit one summit and go, what's the next summit? What's the summit that means the most to me? Now, I think in leadership and in life, it's really important to regularly take the time to pause, reset, and focus on not just where we're going, which is that clarity piece, but also where we've come from and how we can move closer to where we need to be. So, in the case of these outcomes, it's how do we move to clarity, to constant capacity, and to boundless elevation? And there's a number of ways, obviously, that you can do that. There's a huge number of support services out there, myself included. But on next Thursday, I am inviting everybody. So that is Thursday, 25th, Australian Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. But I will send the recording to all those who are registered, inviting people to join me for our second quarterly pause and reset event for the year. So it is a journaling, a reflection event. There's a little bit of teaching on 3 of my 9 core catalysts. Bring a pen, some paper, your favorite drink, and just get ready to give yourself that space and time that you may need to, again, reflect on how far you've come, but also try and get the focus, the momentum to actualize your potential for the second half of 2026 and beyond. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow for more from Endures. And the link for that is in the show notes. Bye.